the events leading up to that. I guess our whole life is just a matter of the choices we make that lead up to a point in time, right? And my daughter was then 1, and we were living in the city, and we had just moved outside the city to Connecticut, and my commute was 2 hours each way. So I was commuting 4 hours a day to, to a job. But that's a lot of time, 4 hours. And so all of a sudden, 1 month became 2 months of this, and I was miserable. And really what was making me most miserable was that my daughter was sleeping when I left in the morning, and then she was sleeping when I got home at night, and this was happening every day. So I just felt this tug of war inside of me, and I really had no idea what to do next. And then something happened, and I just said, you know what, let me start small. And so what can I do? Well, what's my goal? My goal is to feel like a dad, to feel like a husband, to be there in their lives a little more. I said, so how about if we just have breakfast tomorrow? What if we do something silly like that? And most of the time when you have a little idea, it's easily dismissed. It's like, well, that's not going to make a dent in anything. That's not going to matter. But for some reason, I was like, you know what, let me just start here. I don't know how to make the big change, but I do have control over this, so let me make a little change. And I immediately called up Sabrina, and I said, hey, babe. She goes, hey, everything okay? I said, yeah, everything's great. Guess what? We're going to have breakfast tomorrow. and I woke up the next morning, normal time, ready to take my early train, put my suit on. People wore suits back then. And I came out of the room, and Sabrina was standing there, and she said, oh, you're ready to go. You know, we were going to have breakfast this morning, but you can make your train. What do you want to do? And I was standing at my crossroads. I had no idea. And so I'm kind of wrestling with this idea, like, Mike, go to work. What are you doing? It's a good idea, but it's not going to change anything. Just don't be late. Go ahead. And then the other voice was, no, the whole point is to make this small change, to be what you stand for, to align with your values, to do what you said you were going to do. And this tug of war was going on for a little bit. And then I saw Olivia, my daughter, and I just let go of the rope. And I said, you know what? The whole point was to have breakfast. Let's have that breakfast. And so we did. We had a nice little nondescript 20-minute breakfast. Instead of taking the early train, I took the next train. And because I took that train, I was still in the subway when the first plane slammed into my floor on the World Trade Center and hit my desk. Because the morning I decided to have breakfast just happened to be 9/11. I lost my team, my boss. You know, we lost 300 people that day. And the mercy of it was at least my team was the point of impact, because there were people above us, and they had to struggle afterwards to figure out and try to get out of there, and they never could. So that's a tragedy. I mean, it's all a tragedy. That's a tragedy on a tragedy. That's just horror. I just remember going down to Wall Street, and now New York City, at least back then, commuting was a full contact sport. Right? But let them in, let them off. There's just people pounding against you as you're trying to get in and off the subway. Well, that morning, there was nobody on the platform, not a soul. And I just remember standing in the vestibule, and the doors opened up, and there's just nothing there. And that was a little strange. You know, it just resonated. It didn't resonate tremendously, but there was something a little off. And I just remember as I started walking up the stairs, because you're underground, you start to hear the din, this noise, start to get bigger and bigger, like a Doppler effect as it starts to grow. And I started walking up the stairs into this chaos, this really loud chaos. And I got out in the street, and there's just people everywhere. I was like, holy cow, what's going on here? And so I just turned to someone in the street. I said, what's happening? And she said, oh, you mean besides the plane crash? I said, wow, there was a plane crash? Now I'm thinking, little plane, big building, mess, a little bit of a mess. But I couldn't see anything because the buildings were still blocking my view. I had no idea. This was just after the second plane had hit, right? So a few minutes after 9. And I walk around, I'm like, holy cow. And I walked to the corner, and that was the first time I could look west, and I could look up, and I could see the towers. And I looked up, and I see a huge hole in the tower. And because of how high we were, I knew exactly where my floor was. I counted down. I'm like, wow, that hole is in my floor. Yeah, I was kind of frozen. I was paralyzed. And now you start to hear the stories, terrorism and planes and 2 planes. And now the terror, now the horror, and the fear starts coming in, and all the sirens are coming, and it's getting even louder, and they're trying to establish a perimeter and get people out of there. And I said, you know what, the best thing I could probably do is let these folks go and do their jobs. So let me get out of here. So I left. I have a hard time remembering whether I saw some terrible things, you know, falling from the towers, or whether I think I did. So I don't know. It's fuzzy. I'm not clear, you know, and there's a lot of fuzzy things about that day that I'm sure are just wrapped around in there somehow. One of the blessings, you know, every storm has a gift. I truly believe that. I've experienced it, and it's not about making the loss any less. It's about honoring it, and it's about finding, you know, and having a responsibility to find something that's good that is a result of something that happened. So for me, it's a way to honor the losses, not replace them or forget about them or minimize them. And one of the gifts of that storm was the city came together like a family. It really was amazing. People were holding doors for each other. People were kind. You know, New York City was one of the kindest places to be in the world right after that, which is kind of unimaginable, right? But really what it was is just people making different choices, and a lot of people making different choices all at the same time created this transformation. And it was beautiful, you know, it really was. The most powerful message is that I had my wake-up call on Monday, September 10th, because that's when I actually started listening to what my needs were, what I wanted. That's when I started to create those intentions for aligning my life with my values. And that's a day that looked like any other day. And that's the message, because you don't have to wait. One doesn't have to wait to go through a tragedy or to get bad news from a doctor or to have a miss or a near miss or to have some kind of loss to wake up. You just need to make a choice. You need to have awareness, and you need to take a real hard, honest look at where are you aligned and not aligned with what's most important to you in your life, and then you have to take small steps from there. And that's the wake-up call. And anyone can give themselves that at any time for any reason, just because they say so. And that's the message that I want people to